Well, hello everybody. Happy Sunday. How are you? My name is Scott Pinyard. I am the head coach here at This Naked Mind, and I am here to talk to you today about some of the stuff I've been thinking about, some of the stuff that I've seen in our groups. I'm here most Sundays, sometime around now, sometime in the afternoon. But I make a point every Sunday of coming on here and talking about what I'm seeing in our groups, what things I am hearing people talk about, and what is out there. And I have something really good for you today. I want to talk about new beginnings. I feel like that's apropos. Here we are at the beginning of a new year. Happy New Year to you. And I'm going to dive into it. And I'm going to talk a little bit about new beginnings, and specifically new beginnings with failure in the past. So many questions come up about this, and I am going to dig into it in just a second. But first, a lot of people come to us and they're like, hey, I want to learn how Annie did what she did. How's it going, Lisa? Good to see you. Lisa in the future. A lot of people say, like, how did Annie do it? Right? Like, I can see the book and I've seen it, but like, what exactly happened? How did this shift happen for her? That for so many people is a key to a new beginning. And so if you want to learn exactly how Annie Grace went from daily drinking to where she is now, then I highly recommend her masterclass. And you can find that at nakedmindclass.com. The link is in the description of this video. In this presentation, Annie is going to walk you through her journey, right? She's going to talk you through exactly what she did so that you understand what it was for her. How did that go? How did that shift happen? Did she just wake up one day and it was better? No, by the way, sorry, spoiler alerts. But you can get all the details from her directly if you go to nakedmindclass.com. That's nakedmindclass.com. You can find the description or the link in the description. I want to say hi to a bunch of people because I'm getting comments, which is always awesome. For some reason, my comments are not showing up on Facebook. I'm really glad I have my iPad here today. Hey, Morgan, how are you? Christine, how's it going? Happy New Year to you, Sarah O'Connor. I hope it was a good one for you. Jim, how are you, man? I haven't heard from you in a bit. Good to see you. All right, I want to encourage you as I go through this to go ahead and drop some questions. I want to talk through a bunch of stuff that I've been thinking about. And yeah, hopefully it's helpful for you. So, a few thoughts about new beginnings. Right. And the reason, hey, Michelle, how are you? The reason that I want to say this today is, I think, obvious, right? It's a brand new year. It's a brand new year and a brand new calendar for us, right? We're looking out at this fresh start and we're super focused on new beginnings. And this is where, New Year's resolutions come from. And this is where, this idea of change and, rebirth and all of this stuff that's happening right now. I want to say hi to a few more people. Hey, Kojo, how's it going? Jana, hello. Morgan says, I joined the path in February 2021. Best decision I ever made. That's awesome. I love hearing that, Morgan. Thank you. And so when people look at this, right, they look at, man, this is the year. This is the year that I am going to take control of my drinking. And people come to us and talk to us about it. Literally thousands, hundreds of thousands of people say, you know what, now's the time. I really want to do this. And, I want to address head on what I think is probably the biggest question that I get about this. Lots of people will ask me a version of this question. Scott, why should I keep trying when every other time I didn't get where I wanted to go? Right? I hear so many versions of this, which is like, man, I have failed so many times in the past. Why the hell would this time be any different? And, I have so many different ways of answering this question. And that's what I'm going to kind of talk about today. But I want to just zoom out a little bit and talk about January, right? Why are we doing this? Why do we have New Year's resolutions? Why do we spend so much time thinking about these things we want to change, and we wait, like so many people wait until January 1st to do this? The reality is January 1st is just another day like any other day. Right here in New England, it was cold like it is every winter. It was Saturday and I slept in like I do every Saturday, but we put a special significance around it. Right? Because the Earth has completed another trip around the sun, we want to celebrate that, right? We feel like we have a clean, fresh year ahead of us. And what happened before happened before. And this new year makes us want to make the most of it. Even with all of those inspiring thoughts and all of the ideas of, this is a new year and it's going to be a new me and all of this stuff we think, doubt creeps in, right? And it starts as a whisper, right? You start hearing, well, maybe this isn't possible for me, right? Maybe, you know what? I've tried this before. Maybe this isn't really going to work. And over time, if left unchecked, that whisper becomes a yell saying, you can't do this, right? Holding you back, creating fear and stress. And by the way, fear and stress are the things as drinkers that make us want to drink. Here's the thing. All of what I just said is familiar, right? We've all been through this. We've all know what it's like to be facing down a change and to handle the thoughts and emotions and fear that come with this change, right? And honestly, if you think about it, that little voice in your head, maybe it kind of makes sense, right? I have tried this before. Why would this time be any different? I remember going in over and over the 6 years that I tried to quit drinking, just over and over and over, having the same thought of like, why is this any different, right? Maybe I am just stuck. Maybe it's not my time. Maybe it's not what's meant to happen. Maybe it's not possible for me. And that gets me to the thing I wanted to talk about today. It's this thought. When I first heard this completely blew my mind, and I hope it helps you. And it's this. Everything was impossible before it was possible. Everything was impossible before it was possible. And you might be thinking, all right, Scott, that's a cute little logic game. But the reality of the situation is that is a true sentence, right? A thing that has never happened before feels impossible, and you don't actually know that it is possible until it actually happens, right? I've got a couple of stories to illustrate this point. One of them is one that you've probably heard Annie or I talk about before, but it's a story of Roger Bannister. So in 1952, Roger Bannister did something incredible. I'm going to tell you what that is in a second. But prior to 1952, what Roger Bannister did was impossible. I mean, literally, there was talk of the fact that it was not possible for humans to do this, that it was a physiological barrier that we would never break. It was impossible. And in 1952, Roger Bannister ran a 4-minute mile. Humans have been running for as long as we've been around. Never in recorded human history do we have record of anyone running a 4-minute mile. Up until 1952, that was impossible. Do you know how long that record lasted? Right? We have millennia where we haven't done it. Literally thousands and thousands of years where it hasn't happened. It happens one day. That record lasted 46 days. It became possible. So what shifted for those people, right? Like, how did that happen? It seems really weird when you start to think about it. Like, is this some sort of mind virus? Like, how is it that no one does it forever? Suddenly one guy does it, and then it starts happening all the time. The difference is that it became possible, right? People started saying, wait a minute. if Roger Bannister can do this, I can do this. I mean, and by the way, Roger Bannister, if you don't know about him, it's actually kind of an interesting story. He was like half-ass training for this whole thing too. Like he wasn't a professional athlete or any, he wasn't like, hadn't dedicated his life. It wasn't his lifelong goal to run a sub 4-minute mile. It literally is something that happened. And then it started happening all the time. So that's story number one. Story number two I have for you is about walking on the moon. So NASA here in the States, the space agency here in the States, landed on the moon, a manned spacecraft in 1969. Now, this was not the first craft that went to the moon. As you likely know, if you've studied any of this stuff, Russia had tried a bunch of times successfully. The U.S. had tried a lot of times too in unmanned missions. As a matter of fact, we tried 16 times and failed all 16 of those times before we could get an unmanned flight to the moon. That happened in 1959. 10 years later, humans stepped on the moon. Prior to that, it was impossible. The moon was just something we looked up and saw in the sky. And if you had told someone, hey, someday someone's going to walk on that thing, they would tell you you were out of your mind. However, in 1969, it became possible. And after that, we did it 5 more times. So I'm telling you these stories not as some sort of cute, motivational poster sort of idea, but I'm telling you these stories to illustrate my point. Everything was impossible before it was possible. So there's a good chance you're hearing this and you're thinking, yeah, well, what about my past, right? Like I have failed many times in the past, and that's probably true. Lord knows that is true for me. That was a true statement. But here's the thing, right? As this story of NASA and this idea of 16 unmanned spacecraft just blowing up or blowing right past the moon and missing trajectory, everyone fails. Everyone. This isn't a you thing or a me thing. This isn't something that's unique about you or anyone else in history. We all fail. That's the process. Right, this idea of like, why would I think now is different than any other time? The answer to that question, guys, is because you have had those other times. Think of all of the information that you've gleaned from that. Think of all of the ups and downs, from all of the lessons you've learned. All of that stuff is with you right now in this new beginning. Failure is the process, right? That's how we learn what doesn't work. And learning what doesn't work gets us one step closer to learning what does work. Everything was impossible before it was possible. So you might think that quitting drinking is impossible. And so far for you, maybe it has been, right? Maybe it feels like some unattainable goal. But the fact of the matter is this, right? No one thought that humans could run a sub 4-minute mile. No one thought that humans could land on the moon. Both things happened. And by the way, those are just 2 examples I could pick. I had a whole page full of examples I wanted to talk about today. But those are just the 2 that I picked to talk about. So if you're looking at this new year and you're thinking, I want to do this, but I've failed in the past, I want to give you a few things to think about as we move forward. First, the only way to assure that this is the case, that you won't do this, is by giving up. That's it. And that statement, that thought, like, oh, I haven't done this in the past, so I can't do it now, is just a thought. It's not a fact. It's a thought. Yes, it might be a fact that you haven't done it before, but past isn't necessarily future, right? Prior history doesn't necessarily indicate future results. That's true if you listen to an investing commercial or lots of other things that are out there, right? Like results change, and results change based on the information you picked up. So it's not a fact, that sentence, I've tried everything and can't get any farther. This is impossible for me. Why would this time be any different? Well, everything was impossible before it was possible. The second thing I want you to keep in mind is this. Everything that has ever been done, literally every achievement, big and small, was once considered impossible. I mean, let that sink in for a minute. It took me a few minutes to really get my head around this idea, right? The only thing that is impossible is the thing that hasn't happened yet. And it's funny if you look at the way that it changes our thinking, right? There was once a time when we thought that humans would never be on the moon, right? There was once a time where we thought that no one would ever get below a sub 4 minute mile. Yet, over and over and over and over and over, we just get used to it. Now, it's 2022. Now we're talking about manned flights to Mars. If you thought the moon was crazy, Mars is even crazier. But we start to recognize that it is possible. That the impossible is possible. We just have to achieve it. So maybe a good add-on to that sentence or that thought that you might be having about, I have tried this so many times, why is now different? I haven't been able to do it. Maybe just adding the word yet on the end makes sense. I haven't been able to do this yet. And that's just like the 4 minute mile. I mean, literally, it's funny if you go back and you look in some journals and discussions from the time, people were really saying like this was physically impossible. Like no human could actually do this thing. And then one human did it. And all those people were wrong. They were wrong because they didn't understand that everything is impossible until it is possible. And that leads me to my last point. If there's anything you can take away from your previous experience, it's this. This journey that you're on with alcohol, this journey that we've all been on with alcohol, it's a process. The things we learn that don't get us where we want to go are not failures. They should be celebrated. They should be celebrated because now we know what not to do. And yes, it is very easy to slide down that hill into blame and shame. That is why in our programs, we spend so much time talking about positive emotion. Because we know, like, wow, it's so easy to say, all right, get all motivated, here we go. And then a few days go by and then you have a drink and then you think, I threw it all away. I blew it all up. No, you didn't. You now know one more thing that doesn't work. And yes, of course, feeling like this can absolutely be painful. But in the big picture of things, each time we don't get where we want to go, we get more information. We get more data. And that data allows us to chart a better course. As a matter of fact, if you're in our programs, that's why we don't use the terms relapse. Right? Or falling off the wagon. What we talk about is we talk about data points because that's all it is, right? If this idea of like, oh, I had a few days and then I drank, if that's failure, then you're going to feel, frankly, like shit and you're not going to be likely to try. You're not going to be likely to dig in and say, all right, what can I get from this? However, if it's a data point, it's a point on the graph. If it's a data point, then it doesn't have any emotional meaning. And then you can take the information out of it and leave what you didn't like and take what you learned and move forward. It allows you to make a better plan. And I mean, think about it this way, in the way that I was talking about NASA and those 16 failed missions to get to the moon in an unmanned spacecraft before they made it on the 17th time. Let me ask you a question. What do you think would happen after crash 16 if they just said, screw it? Can't do this. Can't do this. Why would I think this is possible? We have failed 16 times. Spent millions of dollars. I don't know that number, but I'm sure that it's in the millions. Why would we do this? Well, it was that 17th time that we actually got there. And then after that, more failed missions before we were able to put feet on the moon. And each one of those failed missions is part of the process. It gave us data. So no, the question isn't how can I reasonably expect this to happen? It's never happened in the past. The question is, how can I use what I've learned in the past to get me where I haven't gone yet? Everything is impossible before it's possible. And I want you to know that it's entirely possible for you. The key thing is how you look at your experience. How do you look at those setbacks? How do you look and say, what information can I take from this? How do you look and say, I want to chart a new course. I want to use this as data to move forward, not as a reason to stay stuck. It's about the process. So no matter where you are on your journey, whether you're just getting started now, getting alcohol free, or you have been alcohol free for a while, and I'm going to get to the comments in a minute, guys. So please, if you have any questions, go ahead and throw them in now. I really hope that the way that I've laid this out today, and this thought, this idea that everything was impossible before it was possible, gives you some perspective. I hope that you can see that your journey all the way up until watching this very video has lessons for you. Your previous attempts weren't failure. They were learning. One sidebar on this, and I can't recommend this enough. If you can look up, there's a YouTube video. I don't have the link, but it's about a computer learning to play chess. Right. And so basically what scientists have been able to do, and if there are any like computer scientists out there, I'm totally not going to explain this right. And so I apologize. But what scientists did is they programmed the rules of chess into a computer, and then they put that computer against a human. Right. And it would play a game and it would lose. It would play again and it would lose. It would play again and it would lose and it would lose and it would lose. And it happened over and over and over. And then it would win. Then it would lose again. Then it would lose. Then it would lose. Then it would win. And slowly over time, it started winning more and more and more and more. And the fact is, now computers, for the most part, are better than humans at chess. How did that happen? That happened because each and every one of those losses was a lesson. Each and every one of those losses was a data point. It was something that the computer, instead of sitting there and saying, oh, I failed so many times, they just say, all right, what is the relevant data? I will take that and I'm going to move forward. Your previous attempts weren't failure. They were learning. And you're looking at a brand new year. A brand new you, a new direction that you want to go. And I want to remind you that you have so much information about yourself and the world and this process. And it all comes from the long and winding road that led you here. Those attempts have something to teach you. That's how this works. So, anyway, I hope those words are helpful. I mean, it was something that's been rolling around in my head for a while. I do want to get back to some of the comments there. And guys, if you have some questions, please go ahead and type them in for me. Let's see. Kojo says, with the ups and downs throughout this year, I'm very happy we both witnessed this year come to a successful end. Long life, prosperity, and good luck. I wish for the next coming year with grace upon us again. I thank you for all the support you've offered me. I much appreciate your efforts shown. Well, thank you. That's very kind of you. Hey, Happy New Year to you too, Becky. I'm glad you're here. D, how's it going? How's it going? Let's see. Sorry, doing these comments on my iPad is kind of tricky. Maria, I am busy. And yes, Maria, I am. Good to see you. I'm glad you're here. Happy New Year. Day 315 for Kristen. I never thought it was possible, but it is. Exactly. And technically, day 315 was impossible yesterday. So congratulations, Kristen. That's really, really awesome. Such good news. Stacy from South Carolina, don't worry if you're a little late. No problem at all. There'll be a recording of this. Awesome. Yeah. Thank you, Dee. That's very nice. I try to bring the best that I can to these lives. So let's see. All right, guys, that's it. I went through all of the comments. I hope you had a fantastic new year. And before I jump off, I just want to tell you again, if you are curious about how Annie actually went through this process, like how did this whole thing go, she is going to be doing a masterclass, which is really, really incredible, and I highly recommend you check it out. She's going to talk about her entire journey and the things that she learned and the things that shifted her mind. And by the way, she's going to talk about all of the failures that got her to success. Not that we really use that word failure, but I'm using it for effect, right? All of the dead ends that finally got her to the freeway. How about that? I like that better. So if that sounds interesting to you, then please head on over to nakedmindclass.com. That's nakedmindclass.com. The link is in the description. It's definitely worth your time. So with that, I will say happy 2022. Welcome. I am very excited to see what this year has to bring. If you, of course, have any questions or need anything at all, you know what to do. Just go ahead and leave a comment on this video. I wish you all very well, and I will see you again very soon. Take care.